I'm honored by the invitation to address this event on a theme of such importance as bringing West African integration home for national development. As some of you may recall, in the run-up to the 2008 presidential and parliamentary elections of Ghana, one of the four central thematic goals of my campaign was the full engagement of our nation in the process of regional and continental integration. I remain committed to this goal in the years after 2008, and now more so than ever as President of the Republic. Indeed, one of the reasons I'm embarking on my current tour of the countries of West Africa is to reinforce the commitment of Ghana towards the ECOWAS project, the project of West African integration. The man whose organization has brought us to this gathering today is an outstanding Ghanaian, one who has dedicated his life to serving our motherland in several fields of endeavor, especially in his passionate advocacy of the merits of regional and continental integration. The celebration of ECOWAS Day in Ghana is an excellent initiative, which deserves the commendation of us all. We should use this occasion to congratulate Professor S.K.B. Asante for this and for the work he has done in awakening Ghanaians to the benefits of integration. It is work well done. Ladies and gentlemen, nearly 7 decades ago, on 9th May 1950, a few nations of Europe, in response to a proposal from the then French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman, embarked on a new journey. When he made the proposal that has today led to the European Union, the European continent was just 5 years removed from the Second World War, a war that had broken the back of Europe and spilled the blood of so many, including some of our own. Mr. Schuman knew that the European continent that had taken the world to war twice in a generation needed to turn its back on war and embrace peace and development. Aided by the highly innovative Marshall Plan that was launched by America, Europe was gradually rebuilding itself. But the fear remained that unless something extra was put in place, Europe would drift into war again. Today, the European Union has a market of 508 million people, or 7.3% of the world's population. The world's third largest population after India, China, and India. One currency, and the free movement of goods, services, and people across 27 countries, albeit with Great Britain having voted to exit the Union and beginning the processes for Brexit. The EU in 2016 generated a nominal gross domestic product of 16.5 trillion United States dollars, constituting approximately 23% of global nominal GDP. The overall effect has been to make Europe a much stronger economic and political player on the world stage. Here in West Africa, since 1975, we've had the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS to us Anglophones, the CEDEAO to the Francophones. The principal reason for its creation was interregional commerce and cooperation. There was a clear recognition that the countries of West Africa would be a more effective economic bloc and have a stronger political voice if they came together. Subsequently, provision was also made for solving interstate conflicts, and as well as grave intrastate ones as well. Today, however, while the EU is central to the lives of Europeans, ECOWAS is somewhat peripheral to the lives of most West Africans. And it is not for the lack of plans or even rules and regulation. It is simply that the political will to make integration real has been less evident than in Europe. We are committed to introducing a common currency, the ECO, But so far, there's still no sign that this will become reality. We have committed ourselves to a common agricultural policy, but very few outside the offices of ECOWAS have heard about this. Never mind seeing any sign that we are working towards achieving this. To solve our energy problems, we have committed to the West African gas pipeline and developed a master plan of 14 priority transmission projects under the West African power pool. But whilst the gas pipeline has started, the power pool is yet to take off fully. And yet, we all know that unless we resolve the energy problems that we face, we cannot meaningfully embark upon the industrialization process that is critical to our ability to transform our economies. We have on the books a common tariff regime, but it is yet to be put into effect. On the books, ECOWAS would seem to have the right policies, but the policies are yet to be translated into effective instruments that would have positive impact on the lives of the 350 million people who live in West Africa. Our problem over the years, I suggest, has been leadership. The implementation of these plans has been left to well-meaning technocrats and bureaucrats. However well-meaning they may be, our region cannot make the bold transforming changes it needs to make without visionary political leadership. We need leadership that is focused on the region and not on individual countries. The European Union took off because of the political leadership of France and Germany decided to make it work. Once the political will is evident, we can then work together to make ECOWAS a true regional market. We've made significant progress in ECOWAS, but we still have a long way to go. For the first time in the history of ECOWAS, all 15 member states have democratically elected leaders. Democracy is on the march, and the ballot, not the bullet, is now the preferred way of changing governments. I'm comforted. 6 years on and after countless coups d'etats, failed development policies, and emergence from the Cold War, that West Africa is finally beginning to find its feet again, thanks to the emergence of new leaders. Leaders who are committed to governing their peoples according to the rule of law, respect for individual liberties and human rights, and the principles of democratic accountability. Leaders who are looking past commodities to position their countries in the global marketplace. Leaders who are determined to free their peoples from a mindset of dependence, aid, charity, and handouts. Leaders who are bent on mobilizing Africa's own immeasurable resources to resolve Africa's problems. And leaders who recognize the connectedness of their peoples and economies to those of their neighbors. We must embrace this forward march, this welcome development, with all our strength and with the best of intentions. The role of the citizenry in the process of regional integration is crucial. It is important that the integration process becomes part and parcel of the national conversation in each of the member countries of ECOWAS, and not just a matter to be dealt with by the officials and heads of states and meetings and proceedings of ECOWAS. Britain's vote for Brexit, for example, was anchored in deep divides that had been visible and growing for decades. They were spurred on by a force more powerful than any political campaign, currents that had been deeply embedded into the fabric of British society for decades. The populations of West Africa must therefore understand the advantages and the disadvantages of subscribing to a regional grouping, as their support for or against the process of regional integration will ultimately determine the level of its success. I have put before the Ghanaian people the most ambitious program of social and economic transformation of any government in the history of the Fourth Republic, if not in our entire history. The program is hinged on restructuring the institutions of our governance, modernizing our agriculture to enhance its productivity, a clear industrial policy, and rationalizing the financial sector so that it supports growth in agriculture and growth in manufacturing and industry. To this end, my government has introduced measures to stimulate the private sector, a monetary policy that will stabilize the currency and reduce significantly the cost of borrowing, in addition to a raft of tax cuts, has been put in place to bring relief to and encourage businesses. These interventions will lower the cost of doing business and shift the focus of our economy from taxation to production. The transformation of the economy we seek through these measures should make Ghanaian businesses very competitive in West Africa, Africa, and beyond. As the empowered Ghanaian businesses become stronger and more successful, they will need bigger markets. West Africa has a market of 350 million, which will expand to 500 million in 20 years. This means that a genuine regional market in West Africa should be in our economic interest, for it will present immense opportunities to bring prosperity, creativity, and enterprise. The time for West African integration is now. A functioning common regional market in ECOWAS has to be a very fundamental objective of Ghanaians, and indeed of all the peoples and governments in the region, an objective that will consolidate the process of structural transformation of our national economies on which we must be engaged. We cannot persist with economic structures that are dependent on the production and export of raw materials if we are to bring prosperity to the mass of our people. For a region that has made the choice of pursuing integration, we have not done as much as we should have in liberalizing and promoting trade amongst member countries. Trade between African nations remains low compared to other parts of the world. In 2000, intra-regional trade accounted for 10% of Africa's total trade and increased marginally to 11% in 2015. Trading amongst members of the European Union, for example, amounted to 70% in 2015. With these very low levels of trade and investment cooperation in Africa, we must put in place deliberate measures at expanding trade and business collaborations to improve the prospects for prosperity of our peoples. I have made it clear on several occasions, and in the countries I have visited so far on my tour of the ECOWAS countries, but I believe it bears repeating on this occasion. I am willing to do whatever I can to strengthen the ECOWAS community, that we, the leaders, demonstrate strong political will to make the community an economic and political success and make the project of integration real. When we think of West Africa and Africa before our individual countries, we're not just being Pan-Africanists, we are being true nationalists, because what makes West Africa better will make each of our individual countries better and more prosperous. It is time for those who believe in regional integration to give enthusiastic support to community decisions and inspire confidence and integrity in the structural organs of ECOWAS. Our people deserve no less, and the dream of prosperity will be within our grasp. Let us be aware that other regional organizations on the continent, SADC in Southern Africa, and the East African Community in Eastern Africa, are already making vigorous strides down the path of integration. ECOWAS must match them and establish the conditions for West African prosperity in the decades ahead. We are required to bring West African integration home for national development. Thank you for your attention, and may God bless us all in our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong. And may God bless all the peoples of ECOWAS on this, the 42nd anniversary of its establishment.